What's up, everybody? I'm Taylor, and here I speak about my personal recovery journey. I am very grateful and very appreciative of all my subscribers, the comments, the feedback, everything. Everyone is contributing to showing up for me the way I show up for everybody else. I am very grateful. I want to speak about something that has been really important in my recovery journey, and it's about changing the way I speak to myself. Over a year ago, I've been in recovery for almost 3 years now, and I've been sober many more years before I came to recovery. And my entire life, I always depended on other people for emotional security, emotional support. And see, the problem is that the type of people I was depending on didn't even know how to give themselves emotional support, nevertheless give me emotional support. So it's like I was searching for something in other people that I could never find because I didn't know how to give myself that. Okay, so I didn't know how to give myself emotional support. And about a year or so ago, my health declined. And for the first time in my life, I felt very unheard, unseen, and misunderstood by every single human being in my life, even my support system, everybody. And I knew that for me, pain can do some things to my brain, and I'm aware of this, and I've become self-aware of this when, that pattern is starting to happen. I'm able to catch it now, and I'm able to be self-aware of this. And I do realize it's because I was going through something so hard and so painful. It was challenging for me, very challenging for me. I got to a point where I stopped sharing the way I used to share in meetings. I stopped wanting to connect to people like I did before I became sick. And so in this time, the addicted me or the suffering version of myself would have picked up to cope with the pain, to cope with the fear, to cope with the uncertainty, to cope with the unknown of what was going on with me physically. But the new version of me, decided that there's really, if I'm not going to find support and if I can't feel vulnerable enough with people, then I need to find some solution to this. Because I knew that if I didn't find a solution to connecting with something or someone, that I was going to lose my mind. And I'm not kidding. So I started talking out loud to myself. And I've always talked out loud to myself here and there, but never in such an aspect of how I was taught to share in 12-step meetings is how I started talking to myself out loud. So everything that was in my head, I would just share it to myself. And see, the thing is, for me, I've learned that I can be 100% vulnerable with myself. I don't have to filter anything I say. I can say whatever I want because it's me, right? Nobody else is around. And so I started getting really comfortable with doing that, which made me pull away from people even more. And I never stopped connecting with people. I did start pulling away from people. And the thing for me is that, I talk a lot about my daily recovery schedule. And during this past year, I did my daily recovery schedule no matter how I felt physically, mentally, or emotionally. And one of the main things on there is staying connected to humans, right? Because we need human connection. And so during this challenging, painful time in my life, there was many different ways I could have gone about this. But see, the problem with me was that, I had people that I would speak to that were going through health issues and things like that, and they would empathize with me, and they did hear me, they see me, they did understand me, but it was never enough for me. It's like something was still missing, right? And eventually, through time and through healing and through self-reflection and with meditation, I realized that nobody can give me what I'm missing, because it's a painful situation. Like, I'm just in pain. Like, that's all this is. I'm just in pain. So it's like nothing could make this pain go away. And so when I realized that, it changed and it shifted my perspective about what I was going through. And it really opened my eyes up to a point where I could really start connecting with people again. I could start sharing the way I used to share in meetings before. And what I'm learning is that pain does something to my brain. And since I was in active addiction my entire life, around dysfunction, I've been through a lot of trauma. I wasn't taught how to regulate my emotions. All these things contributed to how I can internalize pain. I can take pain and I can get stuck in my head with it. But getting stuck in my head with pain isn't going to make the pain go away. Me reliving my pain inside my head isn't going to clear the pain, because yet here I am, still going through the same things physically, but my perspective has shifted because I was able to have the courage and the self-awareness to address these emotions and to self-reflect on, like, what's really going on. And this took months and months and months of self-reflecting to really come to this conclusion that no one or nothing can stop this pain. Nothing can take this pain away, because this is a painful situation for me. And so every day, by doing my daily recovery schedule for that whole year, no matter what, walking around, and when I would be around people, I would feel so uneasy, so uncomfortable. But when I was by myself, I was comfortable. I was secure. Like, I was at the most peace when I was outside by myself, being in nature, speaking out loud to myself. And the suffering version of myself would have not realized a solution to that problem, right? I wouldn't have realized that, hey, if I'm not able to connect to people, let me figure out how I can at least connect to myself. Let me figure out a new coping mechanism, a new tool, because if I wouldn't have figured out this tool, I'm not quite sure I'd be sitting here making this video, because I would have went mad. And that's the thing, like, a lifetime full of pain within my head, right? Before recovery, not having anybody to talk to about the things I had been through, not having people, to support me, to show me how to change. I spent majority of my life in isolation. So, like, these things did something to my brain. And since I've been in recovery, it's been really hard to take action because of the uncomfortable emotions that come along with the action that I've had to take to get to where I'm at today. I mean, for example, about a year ago, I finally decided, hey, it's time that I start going to bringing in-person meetings to a women's rehab, because it was on my heart to do so. But my brain did not want me to do this, right? I had so much anxiety, I had so much fear, so much emotional dysregulation. Like, my brain would try to tell me anything it could to convince me that I didn't really need to go. But I knew that was a lie. I knew that was a lie. And I think this is where change happened for me, is learning to tell the difference between myself, and people will say my true self, and so that's the word I'm going to use because I don't know what other word to use. Learning to listen to my true self, and learning to decipher when it was my addicted self or my suffering self, my inner critic. And that was hard for me. And once I learned how to become self-aware of that, it was so much easier. But the only way I was able to gain self-awareness was really to surround myself with 12-step programs, because that was the only resource I had available at the time. And to learn from other people and to actually take the suggestions, to take action when my brain didn't want to. And what that looked like in the beginning for me is like, I've been in counseling on and off for well over a decade. And I always was taught about affirmations and stuff. And every time I would go to say, I am good enough, I am lovable, it would make me very angry. I would get very angry and very uncomfortable. And it's because my brain wasn't familiar to hearing these things, because my main core belief was I'm not good enough and I'm a piece of shit and I'm not lovable. So when I would say that I am, my brain rejected it, because my brain's like, no, wait a second, you've told me you're not. So the more I tell my brain I am, the more my brain's like, all right, I guess I can get on board with this. Her mindset's shifting. And there's times today that, like, for example, this painful situation I've been going through with my health for the past year has brought up a lot of painful experiences I've had with doctors, with them dismissing my physical symptoms and telling me that it's a mental health problem. So the pain that I've had to go through with the rejection, with being judged for my past, with not being heard, seen, or understood, me being able to continue to face these doctors and to face this pain and to self-reflect and to heal parts of me in meditation, to ask people for suggestions on, hey, how can I cope with this? How can I deal with this? How can I communicate this? And really have to use my tools really hard the past year, right? My brain can tell me things that aren't true because it's trying to protect me from getting hurt. So something I like to do that helps me is when my brain tells me something and I know it's lying to me, I tell my brain, thank you for keeping me safe, but I am safe right now. So I've learned to acknowledge my brain. All my brain wants is to be seen, heard, and understood, right? That's all our emotions want. Our emotions are trying to tell us something about ourselves to protect us or to heal something within us. So if I've learned how to become self-aware of when my brain's just trying to protect me, it's a shift in a mindset. It's a shift in a perspective. It's a new way to look at the brain. And it's helped me. And I'm not quite sure where I've learned this information from. It's probably just me doing all the research I've done and the healing work and inner work and just me coming to this realization of that if I want to be seen, heard, and understood, and that's also all children want. All children want is to be seen, heard, and understood. Then maybe my brain just wants to be seen, heard, and understood and acknowledged. So when my brain tries to tell me something, it's trying to keep me safe because my brain is meant for survival. My brain is not designed to comfort me, to support me. That's not what my brain's designed for. It's designed to keep me alive. And the only way I've truly been able to separate all these things in my mind, right, is meditation. And that was really hard for me to start doing. I wasn't taught about these things. I wasn't taught about gratitude. I wasn't taught about positive self-talk. I definitely wasn't taught about how to have healthy relationships. So these are all things that I've had to teach myself by making a choice. By making the choice to surrender to my pain. By making the choice and getting to a point in my life where I was so broken, beyond broken. Words cannot describe how broken I was. Was I going to stay broken? Because that was really the only option. I couldn't imagine continuing to sleep in bed all day, every day, and binge on Netflix. I did it for over 2 years. 2 years I did the same thing every single day. And I still, in somewhat, do the same thing every day. But the things I'm doing for myself now are actually making me feel good about myself. They're making me feel productive. They're making me feel spiritually successful. And so it was hard for my brain to want to do a different routine, because the brain likes to do what's familiar and what's comfortable. And even though logically I knew I needed to take action to change, it felt like a magnet was pulling me across. Like I couldn't take action. And I had to literally fight with my brain. For several months in the beginning of recovery, when I first started my change, I had to fight and argue with my brain. My brain would be like, no, you don't have to do this. You don't need to do this. And it would give me 1,000 reasons of why I shouldn't do something that was going to benefit me, instead of giving me 1,000 reasons why I should. And I was responsible to tell my brain, yes, we are going to do this because this is what we need to do to get to where we want to be. So I had to learn, and I had to realize that I have control over my reactions. I don't have control over the first thought, but I do over the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth. And so little by little of continuing to make the choice to not listen to my brain and to take action anyways, and to do things that were going to make me heal, make me feel good about myself. Through time with doing these things, it became natural habit. It became a part of my new programming. And so, speaking out loud to myself gets the things out of my head. And meditation has given me the control and the ability and the self-awareness to separate that inner critic from my activation or triggers, from other people's voices from my past that have caused me pain, right? So it's a process. Change is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And I've been in recovery for 3 years, so I've seen a lot of people come and go. And Alcoholics Anonymous only has a 5% success rate. And there's so many other different types of recovery programs available, and they're all listed on my main page. And so there's so many different ways to look at healing. There's so many different vocabulary words to use in reference to healing, right? And so it's whatever works with our brain. Whatever I had to do, I was willing to do it, because just as I was willing to sit in my suffering, I was willing to spend majority of my life in active addiction. I was willing to hurt my children due to my choices I made, not intentionally hurt them, but it did hurt them in a result of the choices I made because I was in active addiction. The choices I made that I chose that hurt myself. The situations I chose to put myself in because I was in addiction. All these things, right, contributed to why I became depressed and why I did feel like I wasn't good enough. And so the more choices I made, the more I did the next right thing, the more honest I was, the more I showed myself love and compassion and empathy. I had to learn how to show myself empathy. See, the thing is that I could help everybody else, and I could tell everybody else, what they needed to do to help themselves. I could write down step by step on what action I needed to take to get me to where I needed to be. But the problem was actually taking action to get there. It was building that self-discipline, because I had zero self-discipline before recovery. So these are all skills that I've had to teach myself. And so the main thing that I'm trying to say is that changing my self-talk and speaking out loud to myself and sharing to myself, motivating myself, encouraging myself, supporting myself, showing love and empathy towards myself, and telling myself, I see you, Taylor, I hear you, and I understand you, and I got you, keeps me where I am today, and it keeps me moving forward.